Grace and peace to everyone. This is Bishop David Cheney, and I'm here with Archbishop Dennis Goffin and Bishop Andy C. Luter. We are the founders of the Graduate School of Episcopal Studies, and we are bringing you another amazing course for you. You know, gentlemen, we went back to put this course together, and it originated as an amazing webinar that went on for almost 5 weeks. And so before we get started into this, Archbishop Goffin, I want you to just say hello to those that are watching.
Thank you, Bishop Cheney. I'm excited too. As you mentioned, this course is based on something we did a little while ago, and it's just so relevant, we thought we'd put it into the course form. So I'm excited about getting started with this course and for the students who are going to be on.
Bishop Luter, the historian of the three, you really dug deep into this. Can you just introduce yourself and tell some of those that are watching what they can expect in this course?
Sure. Thank you so much, Bishop Cheney and Archbishop Goffin. I'm excited, equally enthused to be a part of this dialogue, this conversation that actually took place for several weeks as we looked at the transition from apostles to bishop. Now, one of the reasons that this was so important is because in the current day, our contemporary context, we seem to have these overlapping positions. And we wanted to go back to the core. We wanted to go back to the roots. We wanted to go back to the origin to explain each of these offices, what kind of proximity there was between the two originally, to better understand where we are today. Based upon our experience, academic research, academic experience, I think we have put together probably one of the best online courses in this particular area.
Thank you, sir. There's absolutely no question. This video was done, I think it was 2015, if I'm correct. This was an amazing webinar. We had just launched the Graduate School of Episcopal Studies, and to keep the students excited, we would bring these webinars on. And at the time, it was at the height of individuals who were holding both dual positions as apostles and bishops. Then there were factions that were arguing with each other. One should not be operating in today. And I'll have to tell you, there's absolutely no question. My eyes were open. I became more welcoming to our apostle brethren and sisters. I wasn't against them as people. I just didn't really understand the relevance of their time. And Archbishop Goffin, we're going to look into the course. But there was something you mentioned in that webinar, and I believe, if I'm correct, I think it had to do with usage of title. I think it was a thing about we could all, we understood the history of those things, but how is it being used today? So right now, gentlemen, we are right now on the sales page of our new course from apostles to bishop, the transition of leadership in the early Christian church. And as we scroll down here, we're going to go right down and take a look at the first set of issues that we tackle in this. Now, section 1, Archbishop Goffin, this is an extremely amazing section. In this section, we deal with the historical context of the early church, the apostleship of Paul, and the value of the Pauline churches, apostles as missionaries, and the close of the apostolic age. Now, without us going deep into each one of them, Archbishop Goffin, I want you to just talk a little bit about the historical context of the early Christian church and give us a little information that people can look to see in this section.
Thank you, Bishop Cheney. I think that as we started this course, you and Bishop Luter and I were really looking at the whole structure of the church. What we wanted to do was show, in terms of the primitive church, where the church was, how its relationship was to Jewish context, to the Roman Empire, and to see what I hope we leave from this study is to understand that the church was not structured. It was a primitive church. It was an outlawed church, and it was trying to find its identity. So I think that in the first century, what we covered with all of this is that the church went from its Jewish roots to turn Gentile. And we see this whole development of something coming out of the development of the church from, you mentioned the usage, from the hermeneutics of the words that people try to get into. One of the things that happens is that we don't deal a lot with word usage. We just deal with word definition. So when people try to go to the first century or the scriptures and define terms, we also need to find how those terms were used. because later on terms like elder and bishop, those terms change meanings for usage as it developed on. The church developed a way of using those terms as the church grew. The usage changed, even though the definitions may be within its Jewish contents or its Gentile contents in the first century. The development of what we know as bishops and elders didn't really crystallize until the second and third century.
Wow, that's very, very good perspective, which is going to make for rich understudy for people looking. I think what is also powerful there, as you said, you know, this course traces the path of early century, first, second century apostles to the dominance of the title bishop. And what's interesting is the term apostle, which comes from the Greek word apostolos, meaning messenger, one sent. That was a term that was used in early Roman government. So that wasn't a divine title. To have that title didn't mean you were a super prophet of sorts. It was a title that was borrowed. And I'm going to go to Bishop Luder, because Bishop Luder really, really understands how the first century church really modeled itself after the Roman government. So Bishop Luder, could you walk us through that and maybe one of the other sections, like the apostles as missionaries that we cover in section 1?
Sure, and thank you again, Bishop Cheney. And I think this is an ideal place and time to insert the promotion of this particular course. Those of you who are watching this promotion video, we want you to know that this course is available. It's accessible right now. All you need to do is go to episcopalschool.teachable.com. I'm going to make sure that's up on the screen as we talk about it. episcopalschool.teachable.com / lowercase p as in Peter, lowercase again, and then apostles. That's episcopalschool.teachable.com / p as in Peter, / again, apostles. One of the things that I was so greatly appreciative of is the timeline that we took to describe the emergence of the office of bishop as an outgrowth of the apostolate. The apostolate was a first century designation. It had a whole lot to do with trying to hold on to the synagogal movement or the Jewish movement. At the time, Christianity was still attempting to define itself. Was it an extension of Judaism, or was it a new religion with a fresh start? And that's why we have these interacting terms to each other. You're absolutely right, Bishop Cheney. Apostolos, in its original context, simply meant one that was sent forth for the purpose of taking the gospel and then eventually planting churches. And so that's what those persons who were former disciples, former students of Jesus Christ, now graduated and were elevated to now making disciples themselves. And so I think those who come to the course will have a complete and comprehensive understanding of how this transition takes place, and therefore a deeper understanding of the usage or our modern attempt to use those terms even today.
You know, Bishop, you really hit just where I wanted you to, just pinpoint accuracy. There was absolutely no question in that early adaptation of the Jewish history, trying to combine with pagan worship. There was great issue, great confusion. Many people didn't have a grasp. In fact, I don't know if we covered it specifically, but there was something called the Colossian heresies, where there was a great struggle, great issue in the combination of understanding the Jewish tradition with pagan worship, dealing with, angelic worship and such. So I'm telling you, listen, if you are watching this and you really want to get the picture, you want to know how we moved from the apostles to the bishops, you are definitely in a course that is definitely going to be a blessing to you. Now, gentlemen, the second section, the patriarchs and early heresies. Now, Bishop Luder, I'm going to go back to you, because a lot of people really don't understand the patriarchs, the fathers of the church. And I think that this is a great place to really dig into that and maybe mention some of the patriarchs and early church fathers.
Sure. One of the declarative statements that we make in this course is that at no time was the church a monolith. There is an assumption that we have from the 21st century to think that there was one expression of Christianity or a single definition of Christianity. A little later on, the term orthodoxy will emerge in the vocabulary of the church. And that would almost suggest that there was always an older form or a standard that all of the other types of Christianity had to live up to. There were a variety of approaches to Christianity because there was no single library. So nobody had Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And based upon what they had, that's what developed and determined what their Christology be, what their theology would be, what their epistemology would be, what their theology of the Holy Spirit would be. And so as these varied approaches to Christianity took place, a little later on, they were later categorized and labeled as heresies. And so we talk about the Latin word hereticus, which means choosing to believe differently. What were some of the choices that people in the first century made that was not synonymous with other choices that people made as it related to what they believed about Christianity? And so then we have the patriarchs. We have Tertullian, we have Athanasius, Arian, we have Eusebius, Origen, we have Ignatius, and so many others. And these are names that we oftentimes hear, and we leave them in the outer belt of our understanding. But we try and bring them into the center and give the student a devout and a profound understanding of who these individuals were and why they were important.
As usual, Bishop Luter, he goes right into the technical terms. And let me tell you, those that are watching, make sure you have your pens and notepads together. We get deep into the technical terminology that makes great discussion when you are around not just other bishops, academics, and clergy of other faiths. Now, Archbishop Golphin, in this section, I would like for you to combine them both and talk about what they can expect in the sections on the dawn of the episcopacy and the expansion of the episcopacy.
Well, you're right, Bishop Cheney. I love the way Bishop Luter just outlined from the patriarchs. One of the things we head on in the course, and you tried to tie me down on this, was whether or not did the apostles cease or not. I think one of the things we did talk about was the fact that there was no signs and wonders after the first century. So the guys who were in the second and third century wound up continuing on the teaching, but there didn't seem to be any miraculous works of supernatural nature that was going on a widespread, so that the apostles, and we talked about the didache a lot. We brought that in and began to talk about what happened in terms of some of the rules and regulations and this disputed book. But it is Ignatius who really kind of focuses on moving toward bishops in the second and third century. And we sort of went not only from the first few centuries of the church, but we went into the Middle Ages, and we even went into the bishops of the day. We sort of overviewed a picture of this rather than being detailed in one section. And I think this history brought us into some interesting things. Not only did we talk about the heresies there, but we talked about some heresies that happened in the medieval church and some things that were going on that propelled us to where we are now.
Wow. Bishop Luter, in section 3, we actually deal with the bishops in the Middle Age, the bishops in the modern church, and anticipation of the postmodern church. Now, I want you to tackle a little bit of what they can see in the first 2 sections, the bishops in the Middle Age and bishops in the modern church.
Well, here is the objective, Bishop Cheney. The pressing question for the potential student may be, why do I need to know this? Why is it important? What relevance does it have to where I am today? Now, many a scholar have said before that if you don't know where you've been, you don't know where you're going. So perhaps first and foremost, this is an effort to help those who are currently in the bishopric understand where their office comes from. However, I would argue this, that there are many issues, challenges, and even dilemmas that's facing the episcopacy today. And oftentimes we think that they're unique. We think that this is the first time that the church has wrestled with these kinds of issues. The truth of the matter is there is nothing going on today that the church has not faced before. And as a guide and as a directive, so to speak, if we are able to look back and see how the church effectively managed and handled some of the issues, some of the challenges, some of the questions that they have had in the past, it will better prepare and equip us to deal with similar kinds of issues today. So I don't want the student to think of this as simply a history lesson. I want them to think of this as data material and information that they can use to resolve some of the pressing issues of our day. See this as a contemporary issue and see this as most relevant, most needed, most useful for the exercising of your craft as a bishop and a cleric in the 21st century.
Wow. You know, this course was really eye-opening for me. And I have studied a lot of church history, went in depth over in Europe, worked with Catholics, particularly as they express their understanding. Archbishop Goffin and I talk a lot about the ancient faith church. We talk about certain aspects of how things move. And there are many faiths that understand the progression, but then there are those bishops who really don't see it. And in certain regions of the U.S., they are just at war with their apostolic brethren. And the apostolic brethren feel that in some cases they are superior, not realizing that there is a close relationship. And through this teaching, I'm going to tell you, Bishop Goffin, again, you really helped me understand that there is a synergy between the two. If we understand what it is, if we remove, this course is about removing the spookiness out of the discussion and get to the theological understanding and really see the relevance of both positions. I don't want to get into the issue of calling one an office, one verse, but both titles can work in harmony in today. Bishop Goffin, I'm going to let you get the last point on this. Anticipation of the postmodern church. What can these prospective students get an understanding in that area?
Well, basically, Bishop, we're really covering three sections of the church. We're looking at the ancient church, as Bishop Luder mentioned, where we come from. We don't know where we're going if we don't know where we're coming from. So we need to study the ancient church. We look at the modern church. Actually, within the course, one of the points Bishop Luder makes is that our example today, the episcopacy, comes from the Middle Ages. If it had come from the primitive church, then the examples of bishops in the primitive church was that they were martyrs. They were killed for their faith. The examples of bishops in the Middle Ages was that basically they became lords and very greedy, and they abused the issue. What we see going into the postmodern church is that the example coming out of this is that the issue throughout church history has been two things. It has been on who's really the voice of the church, the authority, and secondly, what does the church really teach? We mentioned about the orthodoxy that was developing. We moved from an apostolic church to a Catholic church to then split into an Orthodox church to then come into the Reformation and split into all the denominations we have now. And the issue has always been constantly authority and teaching. So our teaching has even been off, and who we question as who's in authority in the church is all. So here's the issue. Let me stop here. We're going to have to do another course that really discusses this in detail. But the church had developed in church history this idea that the authority of the church was on the table, the communion table, the Eucharist. But the Reformers come along and said, no, the authority is in the scriptures. So we have this issue between the scriptures and the table. And I would love to tackle that issue and talk about that, because what we have during the Reformation is a lowering of the table and a raising of the pulpit. And now we come into the modern church where we're seeing a whole issue of people trying to be non-governmental, non-restrictive. We're getting away from covenant. It's almost like a free-for-all. It's almost a postmodern church, I would say, is becoming more of an entertainment party.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. We're going to have to put together a course on maybe the Eucharistic theology. I think that would be really good to take a look at it in its earliest form. And as we did with this course, march it all the way down through history to where we are now. And for those that are watching and are interested, let me tell you, it really might be good because apostolic succession is tied into the understanding of Eucharistic theology. Well, gentlemen, we have come together to put together this video preview. For those of you that are watching, I encourage you, if you want a sound theological understanding of the transition from apostles to bishops in the first century church down through the Middle Ages, and come to the understanding of where we are today and how they both can coexist, I encourage you to take advantage and invest in this course. I guarantee you it will be an eye-opener. It will be a blessing to your ministry. Archbishop Golphin, could you add something in closing to encourage our viewer about why this course is so important?
This course is important, and in our overview in the written text we have, I included both viewpoints of apostolic succession, both the evangelical viewpoint and the Catholic viewpoint, so that our students can study both issues of apostolic succession. We didn't argue the point of apostolic succession. We just gave them information to study. Here's what the evangelical viewpoint is. Here's the Catholic viewpoint, because some of us are in between this idea of we don't really understand, as Bishop Cheney mentioned a lot of time, what apostolic succession really is. So we really want to dig into that at some point too. But let me just mention in closing that all three of the courses we created are interconnecting. You need to be a part of all of them. The school is developing other courses, but this course is just another extension of what you already learned, and that could help get you further into understanding where the episcopate is, where it's been, where it is, and where it's going.
Wow. Bishop Luter, could you conclude us? Could you reel this person on in so that they are clicking that order course button maybe 3 and 4 times for some of their clergy that are watching long? Encourage them today.
Listen, friends, you owe it to yourself to avail yourself to all of the material and information that's related to and attached to that which you do in the name of the Lord and in the body of Christ. I want to specifically ask you to take action right now, to click that button, to go to the URL, which is episcopalschool.teachable.com/P as in Peter, lowercase, / again, and then apostle. That's right. We want you to take action right now. We want to see you in our virtual classroom. We want to take the collective wisdom, academia, and research that we have accumulated over years of study, years of being in the classroom, and make that available to you. So take action right now. Push that enroll button, go to that URL, and we look forward to seeing you in our virtual classroom.
Well, there you have it. It's simple, it's easy, it's informative. You're going to enjoy it. You have access to the information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Let me tell you, it's not just video content. It is wonderfully input of data, text information, historical timelines, definitely worth the investment, and you will be blessed. So again, I'm Bishop David Cheney, along with Bishop Andy C. Luter, Archbishop Dennis Golphin. We are the founders of the Graduate School of Episcopal Studies. Enjoy this course. We'll see you on the other side.